So I'm really happy and delighted to see you all. I think UG and PG students both are participating in this presentation. Okay, great to know. And as well as students from other colleges. Okay, so it's an intercollegiate event, and I am delighted to be part of this event. Before beginning my presentation, I would definitely speak few words about my teacher and my guide, Dr. Usha. So she is really a mentor throughout my life, and because of her wisdom, the way she has shared her wisdom and knowledge, that I got the structure of writing the research paper, how to present the research article in various seminars. So when you have listened to my profile, the improvements that have happened in my career, I am dedicating those improvements to my dear mentor Usha ma'am. This is in fact a proud moment in the life of a student, not only in the life of a teacher, because after several years, it was in 2007 that from 2004 to 2007 that I was a PG student in Ochapalam NSS College, and I never thought that after a few years I would become a research scholar, but even at that time I noticed something different in teaching, the language, the refined language, the vocabularies, everything seemed to be so extraordinary and really academic. It has some kind of academic brilliance. So what I want to say is that you are now enjoying and you are really privileged to have the wonderful sessions of Usha ma'am. Really she will guide you to different ways, and I am a living example of that. And even after my research, I have definitely approached her with various doubts, and she is so friendly to help me in various aspects. Like a layman, I often approach her with my ignorance, my doubts, my uncertainties, and always she is there and she will be there, I am quite sure, to help me. And without saying this, I cannot proceed with this presentation, because I am presenting this talk in front of my dear and favorite ma'am, Usha ma'am. So once again, I extend my gratitude to you ma'am. Words are not enough for me, but somehow I am forced to say all these things, and I believe that I have really got the blessings of my teachers, and that is why I could stand and represent an audience like this. Okay, so we will go ahead with the presentation. The topic that I have chosen over here is Blue Cultural Studies, a new terrain of oceanic discourse. So the term blue in Blue Cultural Studies designates water. The Blue Cultural Studies critically analyzes the role and relationship between human beings and water. It also poses a series of questions like, does humans contribute to the biodiversity of oceanic systems? If humans attribute any serious threat or challenge to the oceanic creatures, the role played by sea creatures in the sustenance of human lives, and ocean as a critical space in ecological stability. So this term becomes an extension and comes within the purview of ecology and ecological studies. Blue cultural studies, also known as blue humanities, raises and addresses a series of questions responding to the ecological crisis. And this has become a promising academic discipline in the 21st century. Humans have a tendency to sideline the sea resources, plunder the sea resources to their maximum. So it is here that the writers, scholars and theoreticians of blue humanities or blue cultural studies, they come to the forefront and they address these challenges. They put forward the message that sea is not a platform for our endless exploitation. Rather, we should preserve and conserve the sea creatures, the sea mammals and whatsoever. So this is just the introduction to my presentation, as well as pinpointing to the relevance of the title. With this, I am moving ahead with the presentation. These are the key aspects covered during the course of my presentation. Introduction to blue humanities. You will be eagerly waiting to know more about the term blue humanities. Alternative terms to represent the blue humanities. So blue humanities and blue cultural studies are not only the two terms with which we address this topic. We have got abundant, varied number of topics. Origin of blue humanities, emergence of blue humanities with various terminologies, objectives of this academic discipline, literature review, the studies that have been conducted in the field of blue humanities. Methodology, here I will be introducing a very appropriate and relevant theory in the context of blue cultural studies. Then significance and scope of blue humanities and the notable works that you can remember in the field of blue humanities. Origin of blue humanities as an academic discipline. So there were several factors which led to this origin. To begin with, it was all about our delayed recognition of the close relationship between the modern Western culture and sea. Though sea appeared in the writings of former writers, authors, poets, but we do not have given a proper recognition to establish the relationship between sea and human beings. But that is not the case with the land. We have an abundant number of writers who have written about the pastoral beauty, the nature, as we could clearly see in the romantic times. So traditional research into the ocean, the oceanic world, was conducted mainly by the natural scientists. And from this point onwards, we can see that the contributions were made not only by the natural scientists, but by the literary scientists, anthropologists, historians and media scientists. And before 19th century, there existed a different attitude towards the sea. It was purely based on utilitarian attitude. For us, sea was merely an object to exploit and plunder, not a subject. So this was our former attitude before 19th century. But at the same time, sea was considered to be a dangerous realm. Journeys by sea was considered to be adventurous and repellent, ugly and unfit for artistic and literary representation. So such kind of prejudices existed in the world of literature. But during the 20th century or from the 20th century, the scientific and technological knowledge expanded with focus on three important aspects of living things. One is history. The history of the sea began to be revisited. The geographical locale of the sea, along with the life teeming with spirit within the underworld of the sea. And thus the modern times accomplished another important discovery, that is the spatial depth of the sea has been explored and oceans are radically changing due to human intervention. This is the crucial juncture with which we have to begin blue humanities or blue cultural studies. Exploitation of natural resources continues on a massive scale. And blue humanities thus began to establish its own landmark place within the discourse, namely oceanic discourse. The studies of literary criticism until very recent have focused mainly on the terrestrial meaning related to land, as well as the pastoral themes, pastoral related to the rural life, greenery, scenic beauty, the life of the shepherds. And this has actually resulted in an English tradition of green literary scholarship, which is clearly visible through the writings, the poetry of William Wordsworth and the American school of Thoreau, the philosopher and environmental scientist. But the ocean-bound expansion, that is the sea-bound or sea-focused expansion, was made by the European colonizers in the 15th century, and this really changed the perspectives of the sea. And the ancient meanings of the sea shifted from the metaphor of dangerous realm to a geographic experience, and sea began to be viewed as subjects in themselves. The sea culture and maritime culture began to be explored, and this extended the ecological relationship between sea and human beings. And one of the leading edge of oceanic discourse that we have to remember in this context is Atlantic history and imperial history. Both these histories, to be specific, imperial history dealt with the history of the imperialization, how the colonizers as imperial rulers, they came by means of sea voyage, they explored the different places, continents, using sea as a transportation medium. Then Atlantic history is also, it explored the Caribbean history, European history, American history, and together this Atlantic history and imperial history deals with the various cross-cultural influences. It leads to the diaspora, the various kinds of migration across the seas. So, as a result of these situations, we can see a kind of the growth of multiculturalism in the modern global world, globalization in the context of multiculturalism. And oceanic freedom or ocean was merely viewed as a place where we have to remember about the instability of the sea. And our focus mainly centered on land and the culture surrounding the land. But efforts were made in the contemporary times to historicize the oceans, and as a result of this historicization, we can see the efforts, the collective efforts of historians, ecologists, marine biologists, environmentalists and activists. And as a result of this collective venture, the seas they shifted from the margin or periphery to the center, and it became one of the prominent academic vision, and it transforms the traditionally land-based histories. So this is how the oceanic discourse began to emerge. And now, blue humanities is an academic discipline in the 21st century. So what exactly that we deal in blue humanities? Let us look. It is a kind of disciplinary engagement of humans with water. The cultural turn from land, we call it as terracentrism. The cultural turn from land, if our focus is on land, we call it as terracentrism. And the shift has become visible from terracentrism to sea during the late 18th and early 19th centuries. And this kind of historicization also paves way for the theorization of oceans, and together it leads to a water-centric thinking. This is one of the major trends in blue humanities. Water-centric thinking. What is this water-centric thinking? It offers fresh and insightful views and opinions about the major oceanic regions, saltwater and freshwater geographies. And there is a blue hole in the environmental history, and this blue hole is interestingly filled by the studies of fish and marine mammals. And in this context, I would like to introduce a very relevant term in blue humanities, and this term has been coined by Steve Menz, who can be considered as the proponent of blue humanities, and the term is aquatic wave. So what is this aquatic wave? Aquatic wave is another term used by Steve Menz to dub the term blue humanities, which comprises ocean literature and ocean cultural studies. And thus we can say that blue humanities has now become an interdisciplinary area. It's characterized by disciplinary fluidity. There are no rigidities to this oceanic literature. Even the history, the historical perspective, the perspective from the anthropology, then cultural studies, etc. can be collaborated with the realm of blue humanities, and in that sense we can say that it is characterized by disciplinary fluidity. It has become highly interdisciplinary by nature. Then it has interlinkages with environmental studies, oceanography, marine biology, maritime history or sea history, and as well as ecology. These are the alternative terms that you have to remember about blue humanities. To begin with, oceanic studies. The studies related to ocean and water. Hydrocritical scholarship. So don't be confused with these words. These are the terms that you have to bear in mind or you have to connect with blue humanities. Hydrocritical scholarship, again, it connects you to the water, the realm of water. Then we have the humanistic ocean studies. It's not merely the studies related to ocean. There is a role or there is a place given to human beings, the impact of the oceanic studies in the lives of humans, and in that sense we can also use the alternative term humanistic oceanic studies. Then blue eco-criticism. We are all familiar with the term eco-criticism, but we attach the word blue before eco-criticism, and thus we get the new phrase blue eco-criticism. Then terraqueous eco-criticism or blue cultural studies. Terraqueous, it's a combination of both land and water. Then next we have the aquatic environmentalism. As our sole focus is on water, we need to use the word aquatic environmentalism. Emergence of blue humanities. So we have seen the origin of blue humanities and how blue humanities emerged as an academic discipline. What are the major trends that you can see in the field of these blue humanities or blue cultural studies? To begin with, environmental humanities or ecological humanities. It is related to the environment. The humanities, the scholarship of the sea or the research about the sea, when it tends to share or when it tends to reflect on the environment, and it is in one way or the other connected to the human survival, we can call it as ecological humanities or environmental humanities. Next we have the two important terms, that is, one is anthropocentrism and ecocentrism. Both are contradictory aspects. Blue humanities rejects anthropocentrism. Anthropocentrism is a kind of philosophy that human beings are at the center of the universe. It is a kind of prejudiced feeling that we have the authority to plunder natural resources. So, taking this for granted, human beings continue to exploit natural resources. So, blue humanities clearly states that anthropocentrism must be rejected and it favors ecocentrism. Nature should be the center and man should not be the master of the nature. We have to live by minimal utilization of the natural resources so that it won't be called as an exploitation of the natural resources. Then we have this kind of environmental ethics. an ethical or what is right or what is good for us. So we should approach the nature, we should approach the ocean with this kind of ethics, which we call it as environmental ethics. Then next we have this cornucopian approach, which is again against, this approach is against anthropocentrism and favors ecocentrism. Then next we have the terms new thalassology and thalassography. Thalassography means, even the word sounds sounds high, but the meaning, the literal meaning of the word is very simple: writing about the sea. That is thalassography. Then new thalassology and thalassography both deal with the writings about the sea, and new thalassology is coined by Nicholas Houghton and Peregrine Purcell. Maritime humanities. So next is the new maritime humanities, and this new maritime or maritime refers to sea. New maritime humanities speaks to discourses like globalization, post-colonialism, environmentalism and eco-criticism. So these are the objectives of this academic discipline: to retell human history from oceanic point of view by exploring human relationship with the environment, to focus on environmental questions and respond to the ecological crisis like extreme weather, melting of ice caps, rising sea levels, maritime pollution and oceanic biodiversity loss, to revive the ocean from neglected standpoint to a promising area of scholarship, to encapsulate the crucial role oceans play in regulating planet's climate, and it is analyzed using literary, cultural, historical and aesthetic articulations, to defamiliarize the terrestrial knowledge related to land in favor of hydroecological frameworks related to water, to bring humans closer to aquatic environments through narrative representations, to combat or to reduce the romantic ideology that situates or considers ocean as a waste space, a dumping ground for human fears and fantasies. So these are the major objectives in the realm of blue humanities or blue cultural studies. So blue humanities scholars always try to reinstate these objectives through their literary works. Next we can see the literary review and the major literary contributions. So several writers and scholars, they have made interesting comments about the sea through their writings. To begin with, Margaret Cohen. So for Margaret Cohen, she talks about the sublimation of the sea. That is, ocean entered the minds of the people through art of seascape and adventure literature. So for Margaret Cohen, sea or rather oceans is a part of adventure literature, and she is interested to explore the seascape rather than the landscape. Then for Jules Verne, sea becomes the medium to produce and develop supernatural beings. So there are many works in literature which deals with the sea voyages, the adventures, the instances of shipwreck and the appearance of supernatural elements in between. And for Jonathan Rabin, sea is the most protean of all simples. Protean, that means it is volatile, supremely liquid, It is not a verifiable object as water. We cannot measure it. It is vast. Ocean is vast. Sea is vast. And similarly, sea is considered to be one of the most protean of all symbols. And for Joseph Conrad, sea was the only viable, a surviving alternative. And for Ellen Crafting, our oceans are radically changing due to human impact. And for Rachel Carson, sea is the largest element in our natural environment. So writers, through their writings, they have attributed a new cultural status to the sea. And sea is associated with the highest aesthetic power, as opposed to the utilitarian attitude. Writers turn to the sea as a place of spiritual and physical recreation. Next, we can see the methodology. A very important literary theory is being introduced here. So the area of blue cultural studies applies critical tools like literature, cultural studies, and history to the oceanic context. And blue humanities scholars, they use oceans as a lens to advocate the shift from the use of watery metaphors to focus on ocean as a material and social entity, and to connect the lives that are determined by the ocean. So here we can see a kind of importance or entanglements or the interaction between the land and water, represented through human and marine life in the material context. And here lies the significance of the theory, material eco-critical theory. So this is the framework, and this is one of the appropriate framework that you can depend upon blue cultural, or whenever you try to use or whenever you try to link the blue cultural studies, you can depend upon this methodology of material eco-critical theory. I will be explaining this theory in detail. So these are so for a quite long time I have been talking about blue humanities. You want to see the real persons, the master brains or the real mentors of blue humanities. To begin with, Steve Menz, an American scholar, Steve Menz, through his book An Introduction to Blue Humanities, published in the year 2020, the term came into significance as a literary term as well as an academic term. Then Dan Brayton is another scholar. He is an American professor of environmental studies, and his notable work, Shakespeare's Ocean, an eco-critical exploration, which came out in the year 2012. Then Hester Blum, another American writer, The View from the Masthead, Maritime Imagination, in the year 2008. So through the writings and through the literary contributions and perspectives of these three eminent scholars, American scholars, blue humanities really emerged as an academic discipline. So to begin with material eco-criticism or material eco-critical theory, first we need to know what is eco-criticism. So I will be taking you from eco-criticism to material eco-criticism, so that you will be able to understand the minute differences or the further implications and the differences between the two key aspects. So eco-criticism, as we all know, it is one of the already emerged critical theory, one of the major contributions to literary theory and criticism, and it has made a notable place within the environmental humanities. And this eco-criticism, it connects humanities and natural sciences through fluid and exciting borders. So here we won't draw an exact geographical or physical border. There are no clear-cut boundaries. We include both land and sea. And thus eco-criticism has become the site of interdisciplinary influence. There is an ethics working behind the eco-criticism. It considers all the factors of environmental degradation, both material, cultural, legal, etc. Now moving on to material eco-criticism. It is a very recent school of thought, a leading development in eco-criticism. Let me introduce two leading opponents of material eco-criticism, Serenella Lovino and Serpil Opperman. Serenella Lovino is an Italian cultural theorist, and Serpil Opperman is an European professor of environmental humanities. I am just quoting the definition of material eco-criticism. Material eco-criticism is the study of the way material forms, bodies, things, elements, toxic substances, chemicals, organic and inorganic matter, landscapes and biological entities interact with each other and with the human dimension, producing configurations of meanings and discourses that we can interpret. So this is the definition of material eco-criticism. So to put it in simple terms, material eco-criticism is a branch of eco-criticism that particularly focuses on the material aspects of the environment. So our environment consists not only the physical aspects but also the material aspects, and how these material aspects interact with the human and non-human elements. Our environment is filled with not only with the living beings like human beings, animals, sea creatures, birds, insects. It has non-human elements. So material eco-criticism critically examines the relation, the interaction between human and non-human elements, how they interact one another, and after the interaction, how they impact on one another. So in this way, it examines both the physical and material aspects of nature and how these elements are represented in literature, art and culture. So that is material eco-criticism. And material eco-critical theory encourages us to think about the various themes, concerns and concepts of blue humanities, the discoveries of marine sciences through one another. It relates ocean or blue humanities as a meaningful practice. So this is not merely a discipline, this is a discipline having much significance with the contemporary society and community. It always asks us to think about the various realms of oceanic pollution, the contamination of water, the extinction of sea creatures. So, do you think that they play a very important role in contaminating and polluting the waterscape, right? So, by ways of throwing garbage materials into the water, humans can really thread the blue hole of the environment. So, here lies the significance of material eco-critical theory, which really becomes a very meaningful practice and helps us to see this discourse as narrative agencies. So literature and literary theory becomes the side of interdisciplinary side of narrative agencies, and it formulates emergent ethics as propounded by Thomas Van Duren. This emergent ethics brings individual responsibility as well as collective responsibility. Being an individual or being a citizen of the country, we have an individual responsibility towards the, not only to our government but also to our nature. And this is the individual responsibility, and only when the individual as a whole come to the forefront and take the responsibility, we can call it as a collective responsibility. So as such, we have to make use of the resources wisely, not over exploiting, but taking the resources or using the resources to our minimal need. And thus, we all become the social agents and we all contribute to the life support systems. So this is the essence of emergent ethics. which is very essential in the context of blue cultural studies and material eco-critical theory. Then next we can see the emergence of disanthropocentric discourses. As it is already stated that blue humanities rejects anthropocentrism. So disanthropocentric discourses about the water ecologies come to the forefront. Then such discourses contribute to new practices from the material eco-critical perspectives. Moving on to the significance of blue cultural studies. Human-based intervention produce major catastrophe to nature. And there lies, so when we discussed about the origin of blue humanities and the emergence of blue humanities, we have already touched upon this aspect. The role played by human beings cannot be erased, it cannot be delineated. They play a very crucial and vital role in contributing the challenges and obstacles for the sea creatures and the sustenance of oceans. And blue humanities speaks about the terrain. Here terrain refers to water, not the land, and not the territory. There are no clear-cut boundaries. Blue humanities never bothers about the territory, but rather it speaks about the terrain, the water, and the preservation of the sea creatures and anything surrounding the water. The history of Atlantic Ocean, history of Pacific Ocean loom large in the contemporary studies, and this is also an extension of blue cultural studies. Marine stories and painting have now become subject to academic scrutiny. So, in terms of painting and stories, several aspects related to the sea become visible, and nowadays the academic experts and scholars, they took keen interest in exploring the marine stories and paintings. And thus ocean becomes fountain of images and metaphors. And the new millennium, that is the present century, is bringing humanities scholarship back to sea from the land. The domain of blue humanities, like the sea, it cannot be measured, it is open, it is vast, and it is subjected to further explorations in the future. And several research is being conducted by eminent scholars and theoreticians to improve our understanding of ocean's history by offering fresh perspectives to deal with the oceanic geographies. Still, ocean remains, though 3/4 of our planet is covered with water. The research scientists and marine biologists and all those conducting research with dwelling around the oceans, they cannot complete their research. So active research and productive research is going on from various dimensions and perspectives centered on oceans. And thus blue humanities challenge the hegemony of terra-centrism, the centrism of primary focus on land. It incited significant transdisciplinary research, as it is clearly stated that it is not a realm for the literary theoreticians alone. Marine biologists, anthropologists, historians, literary scholars, then scientists, they all come together and they contribute to a kind of interdisciplinary as well as transdisciplinary research. Various interdisciplinary programs like HMAP, History of Marine Animal Population, then Duke University's Ocean Connect initiatives are remarkable in the context of blue cultural studies, which analyzes the existence of marine animal population in detail. These are some of the notable works that you can remember or you can take into account in the context of blue cultural studies. To begin with, the year 1870, Jules Verne published 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. In the year 1957, Arthur Clarke's The Deep Range. 1991, Rachel Carson's The Sea Around Us. John Peck's Maritime Fiction in the year 2000. Philip Steinberg's The Social Construction of the Ocean in the year 2001. Then Steve Menn's Shipwreck Modernity, Ecologies of Globalization in the year 2015. And to end with Steve Menn's Ocean in the year 2020, a very recent work. Representation of island cultures in text as well as in movies. I'm quite sure that you are much familiar with these movies. You might have seen these movies. Warner Brothers' Aquaman in the year 2008 and Pixar's Moana in 2016. So both these movies, in one way or the other, represents island cultures, the life surrounding sea. And to move back to literature, we have some eminent text. The one is a poem, the other is a novel, and the other one is an epic poem. Herman Melville's Moby Dick, Coleridge's famous poem, Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and Homer's epic work, Odyssey. So these are the notable literary texts where you can see the representation of island culture, journey by ship, and the life surrounding the sea. Poetics of planetary water. So we belong to the planet Earth, and our Earth is surrounded by water to a greater extent. So how does this reality contribute to the blue cultural studies? In the recent years, we can see the rapid growth of blue scholarship or the oceanic scholarship in the literary studies, and this actually extended the knowledge domains of blue humanities. The planetary water responds to the global concerns of eco-catastrophic times. The dangerous, the instability of ecology and nature becomes a global concern nowadays, and it is very seriously addressed by blue cultural studies. Poems of Whitman and Emily Dickinson represent intimate encounters between human bodies and planetary water. The terrestrial knowledge structures are defamiliarized, and in the blue cultural studies we give importance to hydro, that is water-oriented ecological frameworks. Thus, blue humanities critically examines the planet's troubled seas and the distressed, damaged freshwaters from socio-cultural, literary, historical, aesthetic, ethical, and theoretical perspectives. The waterscapes become overexploited venues, and it also turned out to be endangered sites, and this urgently calls for a kind of transdisciplinary cooperation beyond the conventions of anthropocentric thought. Several disciplines have joined their hands together, and they are now taking a serious initiative to protect our waterscapes, to preserve the pristine beauty of water and the oceans. And the future of blue humanities. Ocean becomes a locale for making and unmaking of social relations and identity. It is in this way that the study related to oceans can be associated with our identity. Right now? Yeah. So ocean becomes a locale for making and unmaking of social relations and identity. So as responsible citizens, it is our need to contribute to the realm of blue humanities. So ocean should not be treated and viewed as an object. It is something that we need to cherish and preserve, and oceanic studies provide new epistemology and new dimensions of planetary resources and relations. More research in the field of oceanic discourse will lessen the negative effects made and created by human beings, and we have to admit the fact that to damage the ocean is just like damaging the blue planet. So these three aspects clearly reflects the future of blue humanities on blue cultural studies. So hope you have enjoyed the first part of the session. So actually to speak about the second part, we are actually moving to the concluding part. And after my concluding observations, I expect you to actively interact with me. I know that this is a new realm and you will be having a lot of doubts, queries, confusions regarding what I have shared with you. So be frank to ask the relevant questions that come to your mind without any kind of hesitation. I will be trying my level best to answer your questions, and that is something that I value more than about my presentation, the interactive part. So first let me move on with the second part of the presentation. To begin with the poetics of planetary water, I have already told, but I think that I have rushed with this slide. So I will begin with this slide onwards to have a deeper understanding. So blue cultural studies or blue humanities, or even the blue oceanic scholarship in the literary studies is on the growing stage. The rapid growth in these areas of scholarship and oceanic discourse takes us to the various levels of oceanic investigation and explorations, and the atrocities or the kind of harmful effects that human beings did to the global concerns or the planet, the green planet or blue planet, whichever you can call. In this context, I think that I personally prefer to call our Earth as a blue planet, because we are discussing about the color blue, the blue hole in the environmental studies, the humanities, the blue humanities, blue literary scholarship, the blue oceanic discourse. So this is a global concern to deal with the eco-catastrophic times of the eco-catastrophic times, as well as to address the various challenges and issues. Poems of Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson represent some kind of intimate encounters between human bodies and planetary water. So even when you trace back to your prescribed syllabus, whether in UG or PG, you might have studied or you might be studying various such oceanic literature or the writings about water, or the message being communicated by the authors to necessitate that we must look upon our Earth, or we must look upon our planet with some kind of precautions. It's not a place where we can prove ourselves to be the masters, or nobody has given us the right to plunder our planet to its maximum. So this kind of terrestrial knowledge structures are defamiliarized, and we are here favoring hydroecological frameworks. And blue humanities critically examines the planet's troubled seas and distressed freshwaters from socio-cultural, literary, historical, aesthetic, ethical and theoretical perspectives. So these are the various dimensions that we share with blue humanities, not only literary, from the socio perspective, cultural perspective, historical, aesthetic, ethical and theoretical perspectives. So if an area of discourse can be interlinked with this multi-dimensional perspectives, that itself shows the importance, relevance, significance of such a discourse. And waterscapes are overexploited these days, and waterscapes also become endangered sites, and this calls for the collaborative efforts from historians, marine biologists, scientists, They all have come together and they have given us the message that we should move away, we should move beyond the anthropocentric thought and perspectives. So these are the some thoughts regarding our planet, which is surrounded by water to its maximum. And this is the future of blue humanities. So how blue humanities will be recepted, or what will be the kind of reception towards blue humanities in the future? Ocean becomes a locale, not as mere geographical space, but for making and unmaking of social relations and identity. So various social relations, the cultural relations across the cultures, a connecting link between cultures, and in a way we can form identity, and this is the kind of identity, the ecological identity upon which we all become part and parcel of. So this kind of formation of social relations and identity formation is one of the innovative steps and contribution made by blue humanities. Then ocean studies provide new epistemology, new knowledge. Various knowledge dimensions have been provided by these ocean studies, and these dimensions, some of these dimensions are closely associated with the planetary resources and some with the relations. And more research into the oceanic discourse are being welcomable these days, and only through such a research we can mitigate, we can reduce and lessen the negative effects of negligence. Do you think that we are neglecting our Earth planet? Yes, in different ways. So this our very act of negligence must be eliminated, it must be curbed, and we must probe deep into the inevitability. We must know about the contributions made by sea, ocean, then water as a natural resource, not only land, but we must also take into account the contributions made by water and oceans. So this is way that we must promote research, and various scientific and research investigations are progressing in the field of oceanic discourse, and this is a way through which we can stress about the inevitability, unavoidable situation of the human relationship with water. So these are my concluding observations on the entire presentation. We are living in the world of environmental fragility. We cannot say that our environment is protected to the maximum. Instead, life has become very much fragile, and environment, we are the part and parcel of environment, but we do not have this kind of ecological ethics, and we are not emerging as ethical citizens in this context. And as such, we have this tendency to neglect the environment in its totality. So this concern or this standpoint must be eradicated. We are living in the world of environmental fragility, and it is our responsibility and our duty to preserve and safeguard environment by all means. The individual responsibility should be accompanied by collective responsibility. And blue humanities rejects the anthropocentrism because it is a major threat, a huge threat, a devastating threat to environment. And human commitment to nature is always at stake. It is not merely through preachings that we can bring out the human commitment towards nature. It should become practical. Our commitment to nature should begin from each individual. We should not dump the plastic waste. We should not make the sea creatures extinct by endlessly hunting them for our various materialistic needs. So the human commitment is very important, and this needs to be rectified at the earliest. Our commitment should be very transparent, and so that we can ensure and assure a safe planet in the future. Emancipation of human subjects from the stronghold of anthropocentricity. We need to, still human beings beings are living with the notion of anthropocentrism. So we need to emancipate, we need to get rid of human beings from the rigid conventions and strongholds of anthropocentricity. It is very important. And a timely turn when Anthropocene perils have begun to disrupt the heterogeneity of aquatic existence. So when the degree of anthropocentrism increases, the perils, the dangers awaiting the sea creatures or the aquatic existence, the very aquatic existence also becomes highly troubled. So we have to put an end to the anthropocentrism and the awaiting Anthropocene perils, dangers. And sea is no longer a metaphor. So in the literary world, we can see how the poets and how the literary writers, they have made use of sea as a powerful metaphor. It is the only way that they can communicate the message to the society. But when we look from the reality, when we open our eyes and look to the reality, the world around us, we can say that sea is not merely a romantic metaphor. It is not a romanticized, idealized version, but it provides new vistas, new arenas for modern literary studies. And to conclude, I must say that sea is not merely filled with water. There are lives being part and parcel of sea. So sea reflects human life, and importantly, humans depends upon sea, and sea has given lot of treasures and gifts to the human in one way or the other. So sea not only reflects human, much more human. So in this context, we have to acknowledge the contributions made by sea in the real life of human beings, and our commitment, our sense of responsibility towards sea must never get diminished. Rather, we have to improve our sense of commitment, our dedication to the sea and the oceanic systems, the diversity of ecosystems. So thank you. This is so in the short within a short span of few minutes that I have shed my humble knowledge on the various aspects of blue cultural studies and blue humanities, and I'm sure that you have taken at least some of the major tenets and noteworthy points in this connection.
Before asking a question, I would like to express my thanks because this topic was something new to us. As far as I'm concerned, it was new for me. So we had a wonderful session. Thank you so much. We are so honored to have you here. My question is, can Hungry Heart by Amita Ghosh can be considered as a blue humanistic literary work?
Which work by
Amita Ghosh, Hungry Heart?
Yes, definitely. Are you studying the work?
Yes.
It is prescribed for your first sem. Indian English literature, from Indian English literature. Okay. Yes. So any studies surrounding the lives of people associated with ocean and sea, or the locale of the sea. If in certain situations we can see sea becomes the setting or locale of the fiction, and the lives of fishermen, then the sea, the fisher folk, or the adventurous lives near the sea, or even the travel by sea. So if you come across any such interesting moments being connected with sea, and if there is a message being provided by the author in the context of protection of, they call it the need for ecological protection, then definitely that concerned text or work can be branded under the heading, umbrella heading, blue humanities. So now you got a new connection, a new twist in your fiction, which you haven't thought it earlier. You can think about writing a paper in this context. That's a very good question, Kirtana, and I think that I could provide you a satisfactory answer. Anyway, thank you so much for giving a very good feedback about me. So I'm also not a knowledge expertise in this field. I'm also studying the various dimensions, and I think that with what I have studied in the past few months, that's the kind of knowledge I have shared with you. But this is not the end of Blue Humanities. Several things exist even beyond it, which I am also interested to explore further in the future. Thank you. You're talking about the movie. Have you seen the movie? Okay, the settings. There is a kind of superstitious tale. The movie centers around the superstitious setting, and water becomes the locale. Yes, the sea creature and the setting, and if this is exactly what she asked, Kirtana asked, how can a novel be placed or how can a movie be placed? So apparently, if the director of the movie or the author of the literary work has given or has focused more on water as the platform to explore, and it is based upon this platform the characters, the supporting characters develop their characters in the course of their journey, then definitely we can place a movie or a literary work for that matter under the category of blue cultural studies, and definitely we will be knowing more about the cultural impact, how water reflects the human life, and similarly the contribution made by humans to water. It's just like we need to take it from both standpoints. The interaction between humans and water, and similarly water, the influence made by water in the life of human beings. So there are artistic representations, movie representations, literary representations for the work Blue Humanities. What's the name? Farida. So Nehena. Rehena. During my discussion, I have given you a lot of books. If you, I think you are looking for a literary text as such. Story book. Okay. But most of the works I have discussed are related to theoretical works, and I think earlier we used to study the work The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Are you familiar with that work? Yes. So it beautifully describes the life of an old man named Santiago, and his life in the surrounding the sea. I think that it is a classic work. You must definitely read that work because it really explores the intricate relationship. More than any other human beings, he talks to the sea as a person, then his life centers on the sea, and he learns a lot of lessons from the sea. So that is a nice book that you can read in the context of this blue cultural studies, where you can learn not only about the cultural impact, but also this man, he becomes, for him, sea is his best companion. Rather than, he is a man in his 90s, and he, even at that age, he tries to visit the sea to catch a big fish. So he continues this routine every day, and it was only towards his end that he is able to accomplish it. So it beautifully explains, it's not merely a romantic idealization, just describing about the beauty of the sea, but that novel in detail, it details out the various hurdles, challenges, the conflicts that a man faces in his life when he sets out his journey to the sea. So you can read that. And are you studying the poem Ulysses? No, Tennyson's Ulysses. There as well you can see a very adventurous man named Ulysses, the king of Ithaca, and he goes in exploring different islands. It was a Greek Tennyson's Ulysses is modeled on a Greek character, Odysseus. So it's a wonderful poem that you can read. It's a very short poem, and it brings out, it ends with a very wonderful line: to seek, to strive and not to yield. That is how it ends, which also gives us a clear message that this man is not satisfied with his sea journeys. He keeps on exploring more and more. Even if the weather becomes unfair, he never complains about it. He just motivates his fellow companions to move ahead in his life. And when we look into our real life, our life is filled with lot of obstacles and challenges. So that is also a very good poem concerning around the sea.